As you know that this second wave has been much more virulent and severe than the first wave, and we in the army have had a twin track approach to dealing with this second wave. One is of course force preservation, which was also there when the first wave had come and last year, and the second is the augmentation of the infrastructure required to deal with this surge in the cases. So as far as the force preservation is concerned, all those instructions that we had passed last year, they were again brought into effect for this year also, and I am happy to say that because of that the number of cases in the Indian Army have also shown a downtrend after that initial surge which happened, and as of now we are quite comfortable as far as our cases are concerned. On the infrastructure augmentation, which was the need of the hour because of the number of cases which had suddenly come up, we have done a lot in the last month or so, 6 weeks. In fact, the number of O2 enabled beds within the Indian Army in all our military hospitals and command hospitals combined, which were around 1800 around the middle of April, now they are almost 4800. That is an increase of about 2.5 times. Similarly, the oxygen storage plants, we had only 24 of them, we now have 42 of them, again almost double the number. The actual oxygen generating plants which are required, because we were also taking our oxygen from the industrial plants which are there and from the civil. Very few of our hospitals had their own generating plants. Now all of them have become more or less self-sufficient, and from less than a dozen we now have 93 hospitals which have their own generating plants. And similarly, the pediatric beds, we have catered for almost 1200 pediatric beds should the need arise. As far as helping the civil administration is concerned, we have pan-India been in regular liaison and touch with all the state governments, with the chief ministers, with the chief secretaries, all the local military authorities, the army commanders, the corps commanders have been regularly in touch, and as a result of that, right from north to south, right from Uri to Bangalore in more than 15-16 stations, and from west to east, right from Barmer and Jodhpur, going through the central India, Rishikesh and other places, Lucknow, Varanasi, Patna, right down to Gangtok and Tezpur and Kohima, another 30-40 places. So more than 40 places we have assisted the civil administration in creating and managing their infrastructure and COVID beds. Almost 4,500 to 5,000 more COVID beds we have enabled through our liaison with the civil administration. So we have done a lot, not only for keeping ourselves safe, but also of helping out our citizens in this hour of need. Yes, definitely. As I mentioned that we had put our protocols in place. It was a lockdown as far as the army was concerned. So we, just like last year, this year also we put a hold on people going on leave. We put a hold on all the courses of instruction, all the exercises which we do. This is normally the period when all the exercises are carried out on the Western Front, the months of April, May. So even the exercises were put on hold, and because of these preventive measures, the number of cases were very few. As far as the vaccination is concerned, almost 90% of the Indian Army has got its 2 shots. So we are very safe as far as that is concerned. And one of the biggest advantages of the vaccination has been that a few people who have got the COVID, who have turned COVID positive, even after the vaccination, a very small percentage, most of them we had very mild symptoms and hardly 0.04% or so required hospitalization. So firstly, very few got COVID, and out of them who got, the load on the hospitals also was not so much. So it has benefited in two ways, and that is definitely paying dividends now, because the load on our MHs is also now going down. I think, you see, because of the surge, everyone was a little underprepared, and the facilities that everyone had did not match up to the requirement of the number of cases, and therefore the ex-servicemen who are covered under the ECHS and who should have got the treatment in their empaneled hospital, many a time, due to capacity constraints, they were also unable to meet that requirement. But the moment we came to know that such a thing is happening, we immediately sent out the advisories and messages that all our MHs are available to any ex-serviceman who needs to come, who needs immediate treatment or admission, and there was no difference made while dealing with this pandemic, and especially when cases were serious. There was no differentiation made between serving or ex-servicemen. Whoever came was treated in the best possible manner. I think for the time being, let us deal with the crisis first, and we can see what remedial measures have to be taken in the future, which I don't think in the midst of a crisis we should be thinking on those lines right now. No, because of the measures which we had put in place, the forward troops were not affected by the COVID, because whoever comes back from leave is put to a 2-3 stage screening process at various levels before he is allowed to rejoin his unit and get deployed, either on the line of control or on the LAC along the northern border. So therefore there was no letdown in our op preparedness or a level of readiness that we keep. There was no letdown in that in any manner. At the moment the situation is quite stable, and this is a regular annual feature that we all come to our training areas during this particular period. So similarly, he has also come to his training areas, but they are under our watch, and we know who has come, what training they are doing, but there has been no forward movement, and there has been no movement in any areas where we have disengaged from, and that disengagement that we have done is being honored in letter and spirit. So there is hope for the future. No, we have adequate numbers, so we have put in place our remedial measures since last year. So I think we are ready to face any eventuality.
And no one can survive?
No, see, the aid we have given is of two types. One is where we are creating the infrastructure and assisting the civil administration in management of the hospital. And second, where we are deploying our own medical staff and personnel. So before deploying our medical staff, we had carried out a complete analysis of each hospital, what is their load, how many people they can spare, and only after carrying out that entire analysis, where doctors pulled out from various places to man the COVID special hospitals, especially those which have been created under the aegis of the MOD. But there was no letdown in the quality or standard of medical care to deal with other kinds of ailments in the other military hospitals all over the country, because normal ailments will continue. So obviously we cannot put a stop to that. I think with the kind of infrastructure which we have created now, the numbers I just mentioned from about, say, the O2 beds from 1800 to 4800, so that should take care of the immediate requirement, and it is still a work in progress. It is not going to stop at 48. So in the coming months, maybe it will go to 5 or 6,000. So infrastructure enhancement will still continue. And once that is done, I think that will be able to cater for any other third wave coming or anything like that. We would be now well prepared for any such kind of a thing.